Hello guys, so I'm back and this time we're going to talk about constraints, okay? So you guys are working on the takedown, probably on the blocking still. So think like you're going to keep doing your poses, your key poses, and not using constraint at the first moment, but you eventually will need, if you have things or controllers moving and they're supposed to be together. Okay, let's say one of the guys is holding another one hand or trying to throw the other rig as a one thing. Anyway, so I'm gonna show you how to do this. Okay, I know you guys know constraint, but I will make like a big review and maybe some information may be new for you. Cool. So I have my rig here. It is referenced, and you guys probably have two rigs. I'm gonna bring the second one soon. So I just want to show you that when you um, when you have a constraint to do, the first thing you want to make is to have a plan. So you have to, before doing the constraint, identify how this constraint is going to be useful to you. What I mean is uh, simple ideas like having a guy having a rig just holding an object, a simple object, they are very straightforward. For example, if I have this rig and I have this object here and I want my rig to hold the object, so there is no big secret here, right? I will just pose everything as I want. So this is like a basic pose, and then I will constrain the cube to the wrist control, right? So let me go and do this. So I will select first the wrist control, then I will shift select the cube. So I have the parent selected first, then I shift select the child, and then I go to, I must have animation here, this menu, and then I go to constrain parents, and I'm gonna open the window. Cool. So the three things that you have to check in this window settings is basically the first option, maintain offset, and then the translate and rotate options. Okay. Um, I'm gonna show how each of them works. So basically, when we have all of them ticked and we hit apply, nothing changed in our scene because the offset is the distance between the center of the wrist controller and the center of the cube. When I say center, I mean the axis. I mean this origin point, okay, that we see here. So again, we have the wrist that has a center. It's grayed out, but it's there. And we have the cube that it has also a center, a different one. When I have maintain offset checked, nothing's going to change because it's going to maintain this distance, maintain the position that they are, position and rotation. Okay, so I already applied the constraint, and as translate and rotate are checked. So what's going to happen is everything that I do, the cube will do together, and it's constrained to the wrist. But if another controller has influence over the wrist, so it's gonna be there, it's gonna follow. Okay. um, I will undo this because I want to remove this constraint. I have two options. Of course, undo, I can just undo until the point it's not constrained, but there is also a second option that I want to show you guys. I think I didn't show in class. When you select an object that has constraint, and you know it has constraint because the attributes here are blue like this, you can go to the outliner see the object selected as well. And then when we open, we click on the plus, we're gonna see this node. This node with the red two link chain, it's our constraint node. Okay, I'm gonna delete it. It is selected, and I'm gonna delete it. From the moment it's deleted after when I select p cube again, and then it's not blue anymore, and then I go to the controllers, they're not constrained anymore. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna move this cube a little bit away, and then I'm gonna uncheck maintain offset. So when I click apply and they will be constrained, it will not respect the offset, the distance. So again, I'm gonna select the rest, I'm gonna shift select the cube, and when I hit apply, you see, so the cube traveled to the wrist controller, and now their center, their origin points are the same. I can select the wrist controller and I can select the cube. The center will be the same, so the cube will travel. I'm gonna do this because it's a shorter way to get back to the previous pose. Okay, so now it's here. I will just click back on maintain offset and apply, so you guys know that what this really means. Okay, so it respected the distance. Okay, so now it's deconstrained. I undo, and let me show you what happens if these are not selected. You have the option, for example, to choose one dimension, one direction. So you can constrain for only rotate or only translate or only in one direction of the translate. You can select all of this. And why we have this? Imagine there is, let's say, this cube instead of a cube is a car, and this car is moving forward on the road, but it's also like shaking and going zigzag. And you want to have a camera traveling with the car. So maybe you can have, I'm going to duplicate this cube. Maybe you can have, let's say the one below is the camera, right? So, and this one is the car. So I will even change this a little bit. Okay, so let's say this is the car. Okay, so I will hit select the car. I will shift select the camera, and I remove rotate, and I will leave translate only in Z. Z is the blue arrow here of the manipulator. Okay, so only Z, no more all, and I will constrain. And what happens here now? Let's say this is the car with the camera in a movie, and this is the car being filmed. Okay, so I can select this car, and I can move the car doing zigzags or whatever, and the camera will only follow, you see, in the Z direction. Everything that I do in X or everything that I do in Y, this is not following. It's only following what I do in Z. Cool? So you guys know what are these options, right? So I'm gonna go back to my previous settings for the constraint. I'm gonna remove all of this, and I'm gonna bring a second rig. So file, let me go to my reference editor. I already have one rig here. I'm gonna go to reference, duplicate reference. So I have two rigs. Cool. And then I'm going to start working on, let me move this. Oh, just a minute. Okay, unselect, select. Okay, so let's say you're doing an animation and suddenly you come to a pose that is, I'm gonna do this very, very roughly because so we save some time, okay? But let's say you come to a pose where one guy it's punching the other guy, and the other guy is holding the first one hand, okay? So the best scenario for this, or one of the best scenarios, is if this guy is working in FK, so I have a chain of controllers, shoulder, elbow, and wrist, the other guy must be working in IK. Okay, so I select this controller, I change here to IK, I select the wrist controller, I change follow chest to 0 because I don't want the wrist to follow the chest. Like I can move the chest anywhere and the wrist will not follow. And then I'm gonna bring the hand to hold the other guy's hand. Again, very, very rough, so we can see how this works. Not going crazy on the poses. I don't want to make real key poses, okay? But you guys can do in our work. So after doing this, we have our first pose with a contact. And this is a pose that I want to keep somehow. So I don't have the key poses here, but let's say this pose is something that I want to last a few frames. Cool? So it's good to do the constraint, right? So like I said in class, and I will always repeat, we have to have a plan. We have to think about which controller we want to be parent and which controller we want to be child. This looks very simple, and most of the times it is, but sometimes it's not. And I'm gonna show you the situation here, okay? This first situation here is like the cube one. It's very simple. So I want this wrist to guide this wrist, okay? I imagine this wrist moving, I imagine this elbow, the shoulder, and I imagine this arm reacting. So I know that at the end, I want this hand to follow this hand. Cool? I want this controller, this wrist, following this one. So I select this wrist, it's already selected. I shift selected, second one, so parent and child, and then I maintain offset, and I apply. Cool. This means that the IK controller of this rig is now following the wrist controller of this rig. Cool? And from now on, you can work with this. Cool? And it's gonna follow whatever you want to do. Nice. One situation that can be better, and maybe you guys want to try, is I'm gonna remove, and let me show you how to do this. I'm gonna remove the constraint node from this wrist. Okay, so I selected this wrist, and you see the translating rotate options are blue, and I go to the outliner, and how do I find this? I mean, I have to open a lot of stuff to find. So what I can do is I just hover, I just bring my mouse here, and without clicking, I hit F as Fernando in outliner. So it goes straight to whatever I have selected here. And you guys can do this in modeling, you can do in any situation you need. When you have something selected and it's hard to keep clicking on plus and plus and plus to open, you just hit F and it goes straight to what you need. Cool? So this is the controller selected. And where is the node? I remember that the node is under it, so I have to click plus, and I have everything that, if I follow the hierarchy, everything is under the selection, including the last one. And one thing for you to check that, two things for you to check that this is the constraint node is first, it will be a red chain like, with two links. It has also a name, constraint here somewhere. And second, and maybe more important, it doesn't have the blue diamond. You guys see that all elements from this rig, because it's referenced, they have the blue diamond over it. So this one doesn't because you added this. Cool. So I will select this and I'll hit delete. I can remove it. Cool. Now that I remove it, it's not constrained anymore. So I can do whatever I want and they're not like this anymore. Sometimes when you have a situation like this, and you want to just to go back to the pose I wanted, it may happen that FK option for the main rig, for the rig that is punching, maybe it's not the best option. So you can think about having two rigs with IK controllers on their hands. In order to do this, of course, I'm going to select here. I'm going to change this to IK. I'm going to select the wrist controller. I'm going to change follow chest to 0 because I don't want it following the chest. And the wrist goes back to the origin point. And then I'm going to move all the way to the point I need. Oops. Cool. After this, I will of course select the wrist controller that now is IK. I'll select the other wrist, shift select to the other wrist, and I'm going to apply the constraint. Now, maybe it's better for your animation to work because both are IK. So I have this freedom of moving them around. You know what I mean? And place whatever I want. Maybe I can do things like having this guy forcing more, adjust the situation, and we don't lose the position I want for the hands, you know? So think about this, and you guys know how to change from IK to FK in a frame, in a key pose, so yeah, you can take advantage of this. Cool. But let me go to the second option, where the planning can be important because it's not that straightforward. I did this in class, but I may go a little bit beyond that example. Okay, so I'm gonna make a new pose. I'm gonna cut so I have the new pose right away. Okay, so I want one rig to lift the other rig, to have the second rig over his head, holding the rig. And I'll give a few tips here as well. But anyway, I have to move this rig to be here. First thing that I will do is make this rig have everything FK. And why that? Because I have the hip here that I move, and you see how the FK arms follow the hip, right? So it can move right away, but the legs are not following. And if I want this guy over here, and this guy will, lift and go down and go up and maybe throw. So I want the legs and arms to follow whatever is happening to the hip. Okay, so first thing, I would change everything to FK. So I will select this controller, I will shift select the other one, and I will change FK IK blend to 0. I changed the two of them at the same time. So now it's just one piece. You see, it's a way easier to move. And let's say, okay, so I'm moving this here. And I want him to lay down with chest and belly and facing up. But you see how, let me bring it here. You see how I'm rotating the rig to make him lay down, but things are kind of acting weirdly here. So this goes a tip. and I will show you this in class, especially for when we work with the next rig. This is because legs and arms and head are not following the world. What does mean? It's kind of following, I don't know, some specific direction here. It's easier if I show you this way. I will select the head, and I will, oh okay, local world. Local is set to 1, so when I rotate the spine, when I rotate the hip, everything that I rotate, the head will keep oriented to the, well, this world axis, right? So it's always facing to the same place, and it's weird because I don't want this. You see, I'm rotating. The head is kind of, I want the head to follow the neck, the spine. So in order to do this, I will select the head and I will set this local world to 0. So it will not follow anything but the neck or the spine. Cool. So now when I rotate the body, the head will rotate together. And I mean, this is useful, especially for you guys that are working on the first animation. And I can do the same thing by selecting the shoulders. Then I will select the 2 at once, and I will change the local world to 0. So now they follow the spine, you see? Way better. And the legs, I will do the same thing. So, because I want to make my rig lay like this, I want it in this horizontal, and it's not going because if I select the root controller for the legs, I select both of them, you'll see the local world set to 1 as well. So I'm going to set this to 0. Cool. So every time I have something that is not rotating, following the controller above it, it's probably because there is something following, this controller is following the wrong thing. You may change that. Now that it's changed, I have the whole rig working a different way. Oh, and just as a last tip, maybe next time you are working on the poses, or maybe there's still time to change, you can select the shoulders and change the local world. It's a way easier to work. Okay. Anyway, so now I have my rig as just one piece, and this is useful for the action I want to have. This is useful if I want this rig to throw this like forward or whatever. Anyway, so I'm gonna position the rig in the best as I can. Make maybe a pose that is good for the animation. I'm not changing the arms right here. Actually, not even the legs. I could do it better, but this is just a rough thing. Anyway, and I want this rig to follow what this rig does, right? So here is the first example to what is best to be parent and what is best to be child. Cool. So I have to select one of the hands to lead the whole animation. This is what the planning for the constraint mean, to find out what I want to lead and find out what I actually want to be leaded. So I'm gonna make this red wrist to lead the whole thing. Okay, so I will select this wrist, and then I will shift select the chest, right? Because this is supposed to be the constraint, right? So let me apply this. Maintain offset is there. Apply. Cool. So what happens now that this wrist is guiding the spine? Remember when I say about planning? So yeah, this is what happened. We didn't plan correctly. So this is not the best way to approach the constraint a whole rig to one controller. The wrist selection is probably correct, but we actually want to select a different thing instead of the spine. So let me undo this. Oops, still there. Okay, so I undo the constraint and I will shift select the wrist. Sorry, I will select first the wrist as a parent, then I will shift select the main controller that I want to move everything. Cool? And then I'm gonna parent constraint apply. Cool? So now I have the situation I want. Now I have this arm moving the whole rig. Cool? And as you guys remember, having this rig constrained to this wrist, there is actually a chain. So every controller that you move that will end up moving this wrist will move the second rig as well. Okay, cool. But as I said in class, if you move this rig using the red wrist, this wrist controller, what happens to the other hand? Right? The other hand is not holding the wrist, the second rig, is not touching the second rig. So one thing that we can think about, here goes an idea, is we have this arm leading what's happening. We have the body, the whole body, being leaded by the hip controller. As you see here, it's blue. And here goes a suggestion. Maybe we can change this arm to IK. Selecting this controller, changing to IK, grabbing the wrist controller. We can put in the same position or any position we want. Let me adjust this elbow. Ooh. This is the knee. Well, anyway. So maybe we can have the wrist here and invert the idea. So maybe I can select one knee controller, shift select the wrist, the IK controller, and then I can apply the constraint. And then, yeah, this is what happens. Right? And maybe there is, and this is where I wanted to go even further with you guys. Maybe there is another option that may be useful. I don't know. You can try, you can think about. But again, it's planning. The best way to do a constraint is having a plan first. Okay? So maybe I can select the hip, go to the outliner, press F, remove this constraint. So right now I have this wrist constrained to the knee, but I don't have the hip constrained to this arm. Right? So what I can do is select this hip. Sorry, first I will change this arm to IK. Let me change to 0, follow chest. So maybe I can select the hip, then shift select this wrist controller, which is in IK, and apply the constraint. So right now, what do I have? I have the hip leading this IK, and I have the knee leading this IK. So both hands being led by the rig. Cool. And then I would animate the rig. Oh, even better. Let me do this. Let me select this wrist. Because if I have the hip, and look, I will correct myself to do a better constraining. Like I have this hip doing this rig doing this, and let's say you want to change the leg somehow, right? But let's say I want to change the spine. I want to do something like this. So this is not working. Cool. The hand is going inside. So what I'm going to do now is let me set this back to 0. All the attributes in the spine. Okay, I just move it out. Let me select the wrist controller, which is constrained to the hip, as I see here. And let me go to the outliner. Sorry, select the wrist again, hover in the outlining, pressing F, then I click plus, select the node for the constraint, delete it. So now the wrist is not constrained anymore to the hip. And now I will do differently. I will select the spine controller, and then I will select the wrist controller, which is in IK, and then I will apply the constraint. So right now I have this hand constrained to this knee, and I have this hand, both hands in IK, constrained to the spine. So what happened is the hip moving will make everything move together, including this knee and the wrist, and including the spine and this wrist, right? But I'm doing the opposite now. I mean, let's say I want to make something like this, where the spine is not totally following the hip. So I can do different things with the spine. And this arm is going to follow. Cool. So what I did was planning a way and doing a way that the hip of the second rig will control all the big motion, but I have this freedom of animating the leg a little bit and animating the spine a little bit, and still have the hands moving together. Why do I say a little bit? Because if I do extreme poses, the hand is not able to stretch, right? So I can't do those extreme poses, but I can always do, yeah, different poses. Why not? Maybe bring the hip down here, moving it. You know, do something like this. you go. Yeah, we can do a lot of stuff. So, okay. Um, and believe it or not, we're still in the simple way to do constraints. When I say simple, is because we are constraining controllers directly to controllers. I don't know if you hear about, or if in case you hear about using locators to do constraints. Please hold on for now. I can show you in the future. Maybe I can show you next semester. But for now, the simple constraints controller to controller is enough for you to make the takedown and whatever you need. Okay, cool. So yeah, thank you guys and see you.